The air in Mr. Sterling's office was thick, with the scent of polished mahogany and quiet judgment. My younger brother, Ethan, sat opposite me, fidgeting with the cuff of his bespoke suit. I, on the other hand, was rigid, my hands folded tightly over my purse, the worn leather of which felt like a shield. Our parents had passed 6 weeks ago. A sudden, tragic accident leaving behind not just a profound void, but an estate that was about to define our worth in their eyes. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat, adjusting his gold-rimmed spectacles. And now, to the disposition of the main assets. Ethan leaned forward, a barely suppressed excitement flickering behind his eyes. He was already picturing the money. I was just hoping for a fair chance to start over. The lawyer first addressed Ethan. To Ethan, the parents bequeathed their primary residence, the property at 745 Crestview Drive, including all furnishings and 2 vehicles. The estimated market value of the estate is $800,000. Ethan let out a soft, triumphant sigh. The Crestview mansion, modern architecture, floor minus-to-minus ceiling windows, an infinity pool overlooking the valley. It was everything he'd ever wanted, handed to him effortlessly. I forced a small, polite smile, trying to tell myself it was fine. He was the younger brother. Perhaps they thought I was stronger, more independent. Then Mr. Sterling's gaze settled on me. His voice became notably softer, almost apologetic. And to my name. The parents bequeathed the original family holding the property at 33 Blackwood Road, commonly known as the Old Mill House, and its surrounding 3 acres. I frowned. The Old Mill House. I hadn't stepped inside that place since I was 10, Ethan scoffed. A loud, audible breath of disbelief. The Mill House? That place is falling apart. It's practically a condemned building. Mr. Sterling ignored him. The assessed valuation of the Old Mill House, primarily based on the land value, is $55,000 th. And Vent? That concludes the distribution of the estate. My heart literally dropped, a cold, sickening sensation in my stomach. $80,000 versus $800,000. I looked at Ethan, who was now barely hiding a wide, self-satisfied grin. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly discarded. In one short, devastating statement, my life had been handed a death sentence of struggle and poverty, while Ethan was given the keys to a kingdom. But they didn't know me. They didn't know I was about to find the real map to the treasure, and that map wasn't about a mansion. I didn't argue. I simply signed the papers and walked out. My silence, I realized later, was my first act of defiance. The Old Mill House stood on Blackwood Road like a forgotten tombstone. When I finally drove up, the sight hit me harder than the lawyer's words. It was actively decaying. The porch railing was rotted through, the peeling painted dismal gray. I named it immediately. The Heartbreak House. The air inside was thick, cold, and smelled exactly like the decades of neglect it held. Every step on the dusty floorboards elicited a sharp, protesting creak. That first night, I slept on a thin sleeping bag in the cramped, oldie back bedroom. Every time the wind rattled the window, I swore the house was shuddering, ready to collapse. The next morning, Ethan called. "Hey sis. Just checking in. How's the mansion, Ethan?" I asked. "Oh, it's amazing," he replied, with the cheerful sound of splashing water in the background. "Listen, the mill house has massive structural issues. I talked to a developer. How about I give you $60? Get you out of that dump before the roof caves in." "No, thank you." "Ethan," I said, my voice hardening, "I think you'll keep the dump. I feel sentimental." He laughed. "Take rule, high minus bitched sound." "Sentimental? You're such a pathetic martyr. You know, they always said you were too sensitive for the real world. That's probably why they gave you the shack. They figured you'd sell it immediately." That was the line. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. I hung up. I wouldn't sell. I wouldn't run. I would fix this house, and in doing so, I would prove to Ethan and to myself that I was not the failure he thought I was. I would rewrite my fate starting here. It was while clearing out the attic later that afternoon, wrestling with a cobweb-covered trunk, that I found first an anomaly small. Dark wooden box tucked deep under a pile of moth-eaten blankets. It was secured with a tiny antique brass lock. Inside, I found a single leather-bound journal. It was not my mother's. It belonged to Laura, my great-grandmother. The instant I touched the diary, I knew it wasn't supposed to be here. Alara's script was elegant but rambling, filled with mundane details and cryptic, passionate outbursts about the secret. I spent the next 3 days reading. It was on the final page, tucked away behind a pressed wildflower, that I found the first real sign that this dilapidated house was more than just a consolation prize. Taped to the inside back cover was a small, faded sepia photograph. It was a close-up of a small, nondescript carving. Next to the photo, she had scrawled a sequence of numbers, almost like a poem: 14.3 $11 quad 7. 9.2 quad $22.51. I felt more alive than I had in years. The house was pushing me to do something. I hypothesized the numbers referred to the structural dimensions of the mill house, Laura's creation. I returned to the attic, frustrated. I slammed my hand against a rough-hewn beam near the chimney stack. I pulled out Elara's diary again, reading the last few entries. The heart of the home, its true strength, is where the sun never shines, and the wind only sighs. Protect the 7 by 9. The dimensions, the second sequence, 7.9 $2. The width and length of a room. There was only one room that was roughly 7 feet by 9 feet, the tiny, dark, and utterly forgotten storage room, tucked behind the pantry on the ground floor. I rushed downstairs, heart pounding. The storage room. It was built into the foundation wall. I focused on the third sequence, $22.51. I measured 20-2 inches up from the floorboards, 5 inches in from the corner, and there, it was a small, circular indentation. I tore away the grime. It was a reinforced wooden door, leading straight down. It was the hidden entrance to the subterranean cellar. I peered down into the darkness. I could just make out a cold stone floor below, and in the center of the gloom, something large and cubic, shrouded in a heavy tarp. They hadn't given me a shack, they had given me a treasure map. The stone steps leading down into the cellar were slick with moisture and darkness, but before I faced the gloom, I felt an almost magnetic pull back to the main house. I needed to clear the debris near the entrance to the storage room. I picked up my hammer. As I swung it to knock down a loose shelf, the entire section of the wall beside the chimney sounded hollow. I peeled back the ancient wallpaper. Beneath it was a different kind of wood, a seamless, expertly concealed hidden wall panel. I pried it open. It didn't reveal a ash of cash. It revealed a perfectly preserved cedar box, marked with the inscription, "For our daughter when she needs us most." Tears blurred my vision. This was from Mom and Dad. Inside, there were tiny, muddy childhood boots, a postcard from Dad, crumpled elementary school drawings, and a sheaf of letters they had written to each other, detailing how proud they were of the woman I was becoming. Reading their words, seeing their love for me so meticulously preserved, shattered the icy fortress I had built around my heart. If they cherished me this much, why the shack? The thought struck me the will was not a final act of neglect. It was an intermediate instruction. They wanted me to find this box first. Armed with this renewed faith, I returned to the cellar door and descended. The cellar was dry, and there it was, a gigantic, solid, cast-iron safe, secured firmly to the bedrock floor beneath the heavy tarp, secured by 3 different keyholes. Elara's safe. Suddenly, the silence upstairs was broken by the grating sound of a car. Ethan. "Hello, sis? I know you're here. I need to talk to you about that pathetic offer I made yesterday." I heard him shout. "You won't find anything in this dump. Just sell it. Sell it before I lose everything." Losing everything. This was the first hint that his easy inheritance might be the real poisoned gift. I crouched in the dark, my hand resting on the cold metal of the 3-lock safe. Ith and Ness' footsteps finally receded. I focused on the 3-locked safe. I found 3 distinct, tiny sketches in Elora est Irie. A sun, a key, and a heart. The brass key, the sun, was found behind a loose stone in the attic hearth, hit by the afternoon light. The skeleton key, the heart, was unearthed beneath a small slate, near my grandparents' headstone. The master, to the key was the original spare key to the front door, hanging behind the pantry door. Dismissed as useless. With trembling hands, I inserted them into the 3 locks. I pulled the heavy vault door open, bracing myself for the sight of gold. The safe was nearly empty. Inside, there was no money. Just a thick sheaf of officially labeled stock certificates and a single crisp, white envelope containing a handwritten codicil. My heart sank. I snatched up the codicil, written in my father's hand. My dearest daughter, you have passed the first test. The inheritance Ethan received was easy, yours is earned. The stock certificates are a decoy. Your real inheritance is $50, as are 50 million US dollars. It is already in your possession. Look beyond the paper. Look to the seal. $50 million. The number instantly reignited my adrenaline. I flipped through the blank stock certificates. I held them up to the dim light. On the back of the final certificate, beneath the seal of the supposed investment trust, was a tiny, almost invisible watermark of the old mill house's original, weather vane and arrow pointing west. Just as I tucked the codicil and the mark certificate into my jacket pocket, I heard the unmistakable sound of wood splintering. Ethan was back. I know you found something. You fool. 50 million? He screamed. I'm calling the police about this dilapidated death trap. He was trying to use the law to force a sale. I picked up the heaviest, rustiest till I could find an ancient sickle, and gripped it tightly. When he burst into the room, he froze. If I had the money. Ethan, do you think I'd be standing here, covered in cobwebs, fighting you with a scythe? I countered. Go back to your creditors. The word hit him. He slammed the storage room or shut and fled. The game was no longer a puzzle, it was a battle for my future. The temporary safety allowed me to finally focus on the ultimate clue, the weather vane pointing west. The mill house was named for its proximity to an old stream. Historically an actual grain mill, the main grinding stone an massive granite slab still sat outside, half minus buried in the weeds near the western edge. I rushed back inside to the time capsule. Tucked at the bottom was a roll of architectural plans, the original blueprints for the mill house, signed by Elara herself. The blueprints confirmed a central weather vane, but the key detail was a small label near the roofline. Apex Storage Key Code 19281. Apex Storage, the highest point of the house. The chimney flue. Using a long broom handle, I dislodged a small dusty bundle. It was a large, heavy ledger. Inside, written in my father's precise handwriting, were detailed, meticulously maintained lists of the provenance and valuation of every single rare antique, artwork, and historical artifact that had been stored inside the mill house for generations, including the old furniture, the junk in the cellar, and the useless granite grinding stone. The grand total, clearly written at the bottom, totaled a estimated valuation $50,000. Azero. The $50 million wasn't gold or cash or stock. It was the house and its contents. My parents had not given me a dilapidated wooden house, they had given me an unrecognized, priceless museum under the guise of a shack. Just then, my phone rang. It was Mr. Sterling. His voice was grim. I'm sorry to bother you, but I just received word about Ethan's property. There's something I need to tell you about the $800,000 mansion. It's a conditional debt trap. The $800,000 mansion, it was a test. My name, the lawyer confessed. The Crestview mansion was purchased recently using an aggressive, short-term balloon mortgage, backed by a significant, non-transferable loan intended to cover a massive, looming tax liability from an old family business debt. The bottom line is this, Mr. Sterling stated, the $800,000 value is misleading. The house comes with an immediate, non-minus negotiable tax bill and loan repayment schedule totaling $650,000 due within the first year. If Ethan sells the house quickly or defaults on any payment, the title automatically reverts to a specific family trust designed to liquidate the asset and cover the debt. Ethan didn't get a gift, he got a poisoned chalice. My parents had used the facade of injustice to protect me from their greedy son and the debt. The mill house was the true act of love. They wanted me to earn the knowledge of its value, so that no lawyer or greedy brother could ever trick me out of it. I closed my eyes, the tears now flowing from a profound understanding of their love. They had given Ethan a lesson in responsibility, they had given me a lesson in self-worth. The final piece of the $50 million puzzle, the keystone, was the original massive granite grinding stone outside. It held rare, ancient Roman coins hidden within its hollowed minus out center. I final voice over for weeks. I felt abandoned. I felt like the discarded child. But they forced me to ask, what is true value? Is it a pre-minus packaged mansion, or is it the wisdom and strength you gain by rebuilding a rotten house? My brother got the house 8 temporary. Conditional shell built on debt. I got the future, a legacy of antiques, rare metals, and ancestral secrets, all valued at $50 million. Hidden in plain sight, protected by love. The mill house wasn't a punishment, it was my fortress of freedom. My heart, once shattered, is finally whole, strengthened by the love I almost missed. My life has been completely rewritten. Final shot, protagonist standing confidently in front of the now minus secured mill house, looking strong and composed. So, here is the final dilemma. My brother Ethan is trapped in a multi-million-dollar debt. He almost destroyed me, but he is still family. Now that I have the $50 million, what should I do with him? Should I let him suffer the consequences of his greed, or should I use a small fraction of the mill house's fortune to rescue him from the mansion's toxic debt? Tell me in the comments below, what should I do with Ethan? Don't forget to subscribe to Love Heart Rewritten, because every story deserves a second chance.